This season has been already really fun.
Okay.
But I've recorded a number of the episodes already. But was it cool meeting other guests that are on the same podcast and season?
Yeah, that was nice. And it's always nice to get together with other coaches, consultants who are doing something in their niche and feel like, okay, I'm not crazy, like we're all kind
Yeah.
of struggling with the same things.
Martians landed.
Yes.
Wearing Prada suits.
Yes.
Drinking Henry Seltzer.
Yes.
Chewing juicy fruit.
Yes, and?
Your branding here.
Yes, brand.
Your message here.
Yes, and?
A verse about
Yes.
your product here.
Yes.
I'm Hersh.
Yes, and?
I'm a message therapist.
Yes.
And I have a podcast.
Yes, brand.
That's right, that's it.
Yes.
We'll help you fix the world.
Yes.
Or your bottom line.
All right.
Your bottom line.
Get it. I get it. Welcome to the Yes Brand Podcast.
And my guest on this very special season of Yes Brand today is Dr. Lola Adeyemo. So welcome, Lola. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Hersh. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. Not only are you a TEDx speaker, author, CEO of EQImindset, you transform organizations through strategic ERG implementation and inclusive leadership development. And all of that is really to say that you focus on community. You come from the HR world. You've got a doctorate in organizational leadership and, almost 20 years of experience with Fortune 500 companies. So you know what it's like to deal with the many aspects and moving pieces, I think, of the executive workplace and the experience of trying to maintain a growing and diverse workplace. One of your books was Thriving in Intersectionality.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you also have the nonprofit group Immigrants in Corporate Inc., which combines your academic expertise, I guess, and your practical strategies to create really measurable business results in workplace transformation. We'll start with a real easy question, I think, although every answer can be complex. But,
Yes.
What does community mean to you, and why are you so driven by that overarching notion?
Why am I? So I don't know why I'm so driven, but I think a part of it is because I've also been on one side, isolated, right? Community is something I maybe took for granted growing up in Nigeria, right? Community was a huge part of my growing up, my childhood, my upbringing, my work experiences, and moving into America, becoming an immigrant, and finding all these niches within my workplace and my work, and realizing what I was missing is the communities that supported me and that I need to lean on here. So I think community is a key part of every one of us moving forward, taking the steps we need to move forward in our lives, in our personal lives, in our career, because it's trying to do it all by yourself. It's hard.
Yeah.
And those communities can look very different, right? You can lean on multiple communities for multiple initiatives. I think being the best part of ourselves, bringing out the best part of the work we do just requires us to know our limits, know the areas where we need to lean on people, and know the areas that we need to focus on to bring us joy.
Yeah. And, it is hard. It is a lot of us. I'm just popping into my head like my first day ever as a young man working at a big organization where I was coming in. And I think at that time I was like temping. It was ESPN or Liz Claiborne. One of those. I did both places and they're enormous. And that's just one office. And you're like in the midst of so much and you feel like you almost don't have anything in common with anyone.
Right.
And so imagine someone who is, on top of that experiencing a language barrier or transition or, other things. So tell us a little of your business history, work history.
Yeah, so you did mention that I come from the HR world. I actually think I come from the scientist world, and I live in the HR world now,
Yeah.
the way I see it, because I biochemist by background, by discipline, biochemist, and then I studied biotech for my master's. My first set of roles were within biotech organizations, so life sciences, biotechnology, and that gave me a unique perspective into sort of what exists, what is missing in terms of interaction, employee engagement, leadership decisions. And so when I ventured into my first independent consulting venture, I will say my husband and I already had a IT consulting firm that had started a couple of years before I joined full time. But I had a different role within that organization, and I still do, leading operations and
Yeah.
HR, but at a very, very minimal engagement level. I was still in corporate America full time. But when I stepped away from corporate America, it was to go back and support these organizations, specifically on building communities, building groups within their organizations. And that independent consulting grew across different domains. So when I started, it was initially just facilitating virtual workshops. Of course, I started in around the pandemic season. So that gave me a little less
Yeah.
travel as the typical consultant, because part of why the consulting world just didn't appeal to me at that time is because I didn't want to travel as much.
Oh, yeah.
But I got to venture in virtual workshops, virtual speaking to support companies and help to diagnose for ARGs, BRGs that are feeling stuck, or develop brand new groups. And so that has been my space for the last couple of years, and I've evolved my offer, but the goal still remains the same: to help companies build inclusive workplaces that would amplify underrepresented or unheard voices, whatever that
Yeah.
looks like. And I like to emphasize the unheard part, because you might have a population that is, you feel like in terms of demographics, we have a large number, but are you really listening to them? And are you incorporating their perspective into your product development and into your employee offerings? So I help companies, I support companies around ERG development, launch, and preparation for those that are future looking, thinking about what their goals are as an organization. If they have a strategic plan for 3-5 year strategic plan, how do we align that with employee ambition and goals to make sure that we're working together? And so that has been my primary focus. The nonprofit called Immigrants Incorporate Inc. is a fraction of that. I feel like it's like the other side of my work coin,
Yeah.
because in the process of working with these organizations, what I was also discovering my own story as an immigrant in corporate America, and exploring some of what were the best support system, what were the best communities that I had, what were the best mentors, conversation, why did I classify those encounters as the best, right? And started tracing it back to being an immigrant and talking to other immigrants. And so Immigrants Incorporate is a professional development organization that sort of blends that intersection of community and professional development for immigrants in the corporate world in America.
Yeah. So on
So
the consulting side, you're working with the organization, with the company, let's say, the entity, and on the
right,
nonprofit side, you're working with the executives.
individuals.
Yeah. And so I do
With
see,
the
I think,
individuals more,
yeah,
yeah, for on the
individuals, yeah.
nonprofit side, yeah, with individuals, and also as a resource to the executives, because this
Mhm.
is a resource or maybe an angle that they don't necessarily think about as much. Yeah.
Yeah. And what is there a typical size company that you take on as a consulting client?
So that's interesting, because prior to becoming a consultant, all of my work experience were with companies with more than 50,000 employees, so large size global
Yeah.
organizations. But when I started working, I found out that the value I most wanted to bring was to companies less than 10,000. Ideally, between 2,000 to 10,000, because I think there's a lot that is lost when companies are within that size, because you're not small in terms of how people think of small, less than 1,000, a couple of hundred, but you're also not big. And there are so many things that get lost in that mid-sized category is what I call it, is you don't have the budget or separation of departments for a lot of things, but you care enough about your employees, even at that level, to want to support them. So that's where I come in.
Yeah. And where you mentioned, you live in the HR world. Maybe share a little of your perspective on the HR world as it stands today in the United States in particular, what that atmosphere is like, what the industry feels like.
Yeah, so, well, we're recording this in 2025, which is kind of interesting. There's so much happening in the world, in the US, but let's bring it back to the HR space, to the workplace. We are seeing HR leaders take on more responsibility or getting stuck with more responsibility. As always, employee hiring is still a big thing, but when we talk about HR, it's not just the hiring, right? Is the onboarding, is engaging the employees, and two of the biggest areas of priority right now is turnover, right? People are moving on, people are switching companies, and HR is still struggling to recruit people because there are openings that they want to fill, and so lowering the turnover number, also increasing the retention for the organization. I'll say two big areas where companies are focused on in right now, and HR becomes a key player. But another interesting piece, I guess, as it relates to my work, is that there's a lot of anti-DEI sentiment.
Yeah.
And I try not to use the acronym and just break it down. Whatever you call it within your organization, there's a lot of we're not doing programs around inclusion. We want to recruit people for the work that they do, whatever term you call it, right?
Yeah.
People are dissolving established entities within the organization that are focused on inclusion and equity, right? But guess what? This thing still needs to happen. And who is having to do it is HR. So HR is getting stuck with everything, in addition to, managing the business and operations and all of the things that are going on there. So I think HR learning and understanding the value of employee resource groups and how to activate these internal networks is really important. So as it unfolds, we are seeing a lot more. I do a lot of speaking and have conversations with HR leaders. And so HR leaders are already equipped for these, right? But I think I always struggled with segregating DEI to be an external department. There needs to be somebody within your organization that is responsible and accountable. But when it comes to inclusion, it should be everybody's role. And so depending on where your organization stands on that journey, HR already touches everybody. How can we just merge and integrate all of these goals and equip our HR teams to be able to support our employees and support the organization?
So it sounds like, in general, generally speaking, that these corporations, companies, nothing has changed for them in terms of their appreciation of the necessity of a really healthy, diverse, and inclusive organization and culture. Right. But because of the political atmosphere, the external atmosphere, they're having to somehow stop calling it DEI, or they have to stop kind of infrastructurally making noise about it. It's not, but it makes sense that it wouldn't necessarily have changed their attitudes about what makes because ultimately it's about what makes the company stronger, what
Right.
makes for a strong company. You
Right.
know, what are the things that make a business function better,
Right.
provide better service, and be a happier place to work? You
Right.
know, that so it's those things.
Right.
It's inclusivity. That just makes sense. That's something that took a while for society to catch up to, but it's obvious, it's an
Right.
obvious
Right.
thing. Um,
Right.
yeah,
And yeah, and nothing has changed in terms of companies still, of course, there's the financial bottom line, right? Like companies have to make money. The employees want their companies to make money
yeah,
because that's how they get paid, right? And so my primary clients are the business leaders and HR leaders and people leaders, because I think connecting the dots and bridging this gap between what our employees actually want and what we want as an organization has been a challenge, because leaders make all these decisions and this gap across hierarchies within the organization where we think the leaders are just about money and the employees think they don't care about us and the leaders think employees just want more. How can we work together in a truly inclusive organization where everybody wins, right? The business benefits, the employees benefit, and overall, there's innovation, there's retention and satisfaction among your employees. So I think for those that truly preach inclusion, so one of the things we just said is, I think this whole atmosphere is helping us to sift through who is truly
yeah,
sincere about inclusion, because
right,
there have been a lot of people that say we are, but they're not really, right?
yeah,
And so this forces people to like choose, right? Are you truly serious about wanting to make this place, this organization, the best place to work for our employees and for our customers? Then here are some of the things you have to be open to exploring, and so that we can be better. It's not
yeah,
just doing the PR, it's actually doing the work.
yeah, and you're right, that is a healthier way to go about it, is to have people kind of take a stand about how they feel. And it's challenging in an organization that the larger it is, on the one hand, it becomes kind of monolithic. You get a sense
Right,
of how the community is supposed to behave, or
right,
what the rules are, because they're so standardized in such a
right.
big company. But at the same time, any good company wants to celebrate the individual, right? How do you approach that when you have communities that are sharing certain experiences and sentiments, but everybody's an individual?
Right. And this is where the work that I do, I think this is where I'm really, really passionate about making these more of a focused conversation for your organization. It's not a one size fits all, right? A lot of people talk about ERGs. Oh, we have ERGs. Oh, we don't have ERGs. Yeah, you have ERGs. What's your process to fully leverage them? Because the idea is, you as a leader, when you sit there and you make a decision to say, let's launch ERGs, and you think we can just walk away, hey, we have the ERGs, we made them happy. Let them do
Yeah,
whatever they want to do within those groups. Your role as a leader is not to tell people how to feel belonging. Your role is to create the spaces so that people can freely step into these spaces and step back if they need to and step into the next space, right? You curating these spaces, these employee resource group, business resource group, colleague, whatever the spaces are called within your organizations. People are hired for their functions, right? We're breaking these silos and creating spaces where people get to step into the group that speaks to them in that season of life, right?
yeah,
So it's not, you look black, so you join the black group. That is your group. You can't be in this group because you are not black.
yeah,
If you curate a space because you want the black employees at your organization to feel community and belonging, it doesn't mean you are excluding the white employees from those groups. It means you're
yeah,
centering some of the issues that Black people at your organizations face, and you are working to eliminate those spaces. And so white people can also be in these groups. It's how you curate the groups, how you position it, how you communicate it to your employees so that the outcome is a win-win. for employees of
Yeah.
all color, right? So you can create different groups for around different issues, around different mission and vision. And then there should be, as long as I work at your organization, I should be able to join any of your groups
Right.
and feel like I belong in that space. Is either
Right.
I'm learning in that space, or I'm growing, or I'm getting to feel more comfortable because of my participation. So these groups should be able to speak to different audiences based on the perspective that they bring in.
Yeah, that's amazing because, it truly speaks universally so that everybody benefits from an atmosphere like that. Everybody grows, everybody has exposure to opportunity, everybody gets to use the skills that they already have while exploring and adopting new skills and new capabilities. And that's really important in a rapidly
leadership.
evolving world, or big organization or a changing world, or an organization that, as you pointed out, wants to do well, wants
Right.
to make a profit.
Yeah,
well,
and I think one of the things you just talked about is the skill development aspect. And I think we forget about that when we talk about ARGs sometimes, because people think ARGs are just social clubs where all the Black people, the women, the LGBTQ people, they go get together to party. I don't know
yeah.
where that all social. Now, there is a community core part of these groups, right? So for the members of this group, whoever that membership that you have defined is, they should be able to come into these spaces. And maybe that's the initial part of the groups. If your organization is new to launching groups, at the minimum, when these groups start, people should go in there and just feel seen and heard, right? That sense of community, that sense of belonging should be nurtured. But as these groups evolve, they take on more goals, broader goals around and action areas around fulfilling their mission, right? So in addition to the community, which stays at the center, they begin to expand to impacting different groups. And so another area of that is upskilling and reskilling is big conversation right now in the HR space, right? Where in a
Yeah.
changing world of work. I mean, that sounds like a phrase, like a cliche
Yeah.
phrase now, the revolving world of rapidly evolving world of work. But
Yeah.
I'm like, that's literally what we're living right now. The world of work is changing. There are tools coming up.
Yeah.
Things that we thought were roles that we went to school for 10, 20 years ago. It's like, what is that role right now? Is it even relevant? And then we see people that are in the workforce thinking of, how do I keep upskilling myself, reskilling myself, right? Expanding my skill set so that I still stay relevant. I'm doing the same, I'm accomplishing the same goals I want to in my job, but I have better tools to do it. So ERGs become this bucket, these hubs for skill development that might not
Yeah.
necessarily be happening in their day job.
Well, there's two things that brings to mind. One is AI, and from where you're sitting, what is the practical effect right now of AI on workforces? And then the other piece is, if AI is taking a certain place or has an evolving role, then does that mean that younger employees, does that mean more ageism, as a result of more ageism? But take the AI piece in general first, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, there's no conference that I've attended in the last, I don't know, 12 months that has not have a heavy AI component. And I don't consider myself a early adopter, although when I talk to certain people, they feel like I am a very early adopter. I like, for example, I don't buy the latest phone. I don't buy the most recent version of everything.
Yeah.
For me, I like to see it tested. I like to see the proof of concept. I like people to use it. And I
Yeah.
like to get user feedback on things. And I will say AI is gaining adoption rapidly because we're seeing the value in doing some of the repetitive tasks that we do, in being able to do that very well and freeing us up to do the things that we can't replace with AI, right? I mean, if you find joy in a certain aspect of the process, but there's certain part of the tasks that need to get done, and you're still having to do that manually in order to get to do the things you love, AI application is going to be helpful to every one of us, but it's in how you use it. Is understanding that there are 100 different tools that we could all sign up for a trial for right now for AI. But do
Yeah.
you need everything? You still have to understand your process. You have to know what you're doing, and you have to be able to pick the ones that is most relevant to you. I think we're always going to need that human side. It's even with basic ChatGPT to do tasks now. Who is prompting the ChatGPT? How are you using the data that you get from it, right? We can't take the human out of it. These are tools to support the work that we do, and there's no role we're doing in an organization that can use more support.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think most people I talk to understand that, whether it's in the creative field or the
Right.
scientific field or the corporate or administrative field, there's applications for it all over the place. But, who is it serving? It's supposed to serve
Who's it
us
serving?
to have us focus on the things that we do best,
Right.
you know?
Exactly.
And what about that? And this is more of a general question. What about ageism in the workplace?
Age is very interesting. I actually had my recent guest on, I host the ARG resource sessions where we talk about new and fascinating topics around inclusion in the workplace. And I had a generational, multi-generational workforce expert chat with me, and we were talking about these. I think we benefit from having multiple generations in the workplace, and it's going to be happening for a long time because we're in such a critical time, and the different generations that are working together have major differences, right? We're talking about traditional workforce, we're talking about Gen Z, and everything in between.
Yeah.
Right? We come from different worlds in the way we were raised, in what is normal to us. But that is where the power comes in. When all of these different generations come together and respect each other and can have conversations, we would see the different value that we all bring. So, older people can choose to stay in the workforce for as long as they want, or move into entrepreneurship. It doesn't matter what lane, either in corporate or in entrepreneurship, we have people staying, doing work for longer because some people find their purpose and their passion later in life, or they find new passions and they want to work. With all the tools coming up, right, it's bringing up different things for people to love and enjoy. So I think we are going to learn to love a multi-generational workplace,
Yeah.
whether we like it or not. We don't have a choice.
I think that's great. I mean, that is definitely an offshoot of, things changing so quickly.
Yeah.
If nothing changed for 20 years, then everybody in that 20-year gap, stretch would have the same experience.
All
But
right.
now the experiences are, it can be 1 year to the next, 5 years. What happens and what advances in all of that time. And I think it would be good for us to think multi-generationally, because this is something I'm seeing also in other industries where people are forming companies with senior and what you would consider to be more junior or younger partners, where you'll have a huge generational gap, but they recognize the value that each of them bring.
All right.
And they're really trying to create something, obviously it's current. Old fashioned, as a word or as a thing, it's just a piece.
All right.
So, nobody starts an old fashioned company. It doesn't make any sense. But you can bring values that you had in another iteration. It's iterative. That's how
Right.
business is. But let's talk about
Old-fashioned and age.
yeah. Well, let's talk about you. And, you're always growing. You've constantly sought continuing education. You get advanced degrees. You're doing things. You're an author. What is on the horizon for you, or the most exciting thing for you as an individual growing in business?
I think one of the things I I've begun to lean into and realize maybe for the last few years is I enjoy writing. I
Oh,
actually enjoy writing more than I thought I would. And after I wrote my first book, I knew I was going to write another book. I don't know when. And I'm working on a couple, but I enjoy the process of actually writing. And I recently got my doctorate, and one of the things I'm exploring is teaching, preparing, like actually getting to work with students in the classroom. Maybe. I don't know. I
well,
think
well, I've seen, I've seen some of your videos where your TEDx talk, and I mean, you're very compelling as a speaker. So I think you are already doing a lot of that, and there's a very natural progression, I think, having watched a lot of speakers and having done speaking myself, and I've done speaking, teaching, and stand-up comedy.
oh,
So I know the differences, the
differences. Yeah.
nuances
Mm-hmm.
among all of them. And I think that um, it would make perfect sense for you to be in some capacity teaching, speaking to
Yeah.
audiences who are, because learning, in order to be good at teaching, I think you have to love learning.
Yes.
And you seem to have that desire for knowledge and growth. As we kind of come full circle here, what, speaking to an audience of entrepreneurs and small business owners and people who are always looking for ways to brand their business or their category or what they're doing, what do you think are some of the most important things to have when you're building something new?
When you're building something new, I think it's to stay clear on where you're going, even if you don't know the how yet. One of the things I've enjoyed doing this year was listening back on some of my recordings from 5 years ago and some of my writing from 5 years ago, and seeing that my mission, my vision still sounds the same, even though the how has changed. As consultants, as coaches, I feel like a lot of times we're trying different things and we don't want to let go of something because it's supposed to be the latest thing that everybody is doing. And sometimes we just have to remember to don't be afraid to let go, keep the big vision, but explore the how, especially with, as we just talked about, technology changing so much. Another thing that I'm exploring is a platform, the technology piece for my work that allows some of the manual pieces to be in place easily so that I get to do what actually needs me in a very flexible way. So I think as coaches, as consultants, the world of work is changing. What people are looking for is changing. We got to stay plugged into communities that help us. Like our communities doesn't have to be consultants that do exactly what I do,
Mhm.
right? It's just got to be a space that keeps us accountable, that helps us reflect on everything we are doing and reflect it back so that we know if there's an opportunity to drop something or pick up something new as we work towards the niche solutions that we are trying to provide.
Yeah, I feel like when it comes to communities and support, mutual support, I feel most comfortable not with people who are necessarily in my industry even, but just people who are kind of in the similar place in terms of emotional maturity, in terms of, life, in terms of, growth, who are kind of, we're all striving for something, we're all trying to get somewhere, but it's
Right.
somewhere different for each of
Right.
us. But I find in a communal sense, we're able to help each other because we're not bogged down with, oh, what's the branding business like, or the automotive industry, or we're not cluttered with all. That's our
Right.
own individual thing. But we're
Right.
like, how do you deal with family? How do you deal with what kids are going through? How do you deal with, work-life balance? How do you,
Right.
but we're all in a similar kind of place in the stream,
Right. 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 So we're more collaborative as
Yeah,
opposed to competing.
true.
Really, we're collaborating and supporting each other. And I think that's the goal. That should be the goal for all of us as consultants, coaches, speakers is to be in spaces where we feel like we can collaborate with each other, not necessarily compete.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I mean, probably on that last note, I would end the interview. But if there's anything else that you feel we didn't cover, Lola, is there anything we didn't cover or anything you wanted to include?
I think just as you touched on work-life balance a little bit, and I was like, oh, I do have kids.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Well,
they do run about.
talk a little bit about that, about the work-life balance. You just got back from a family, trip over July 4th, you know. What is it like? What is your experience with all that you and your husband are doing and having the kids?
Yeah, I see acceptance, our level of acceptance for this is the phase where we are. We are not competing with anybody else except ourselves. We both have businesses, we're both busy, but we both love our kids and want to make time for them. So we do that. We get the supports that we need, but we also make time to spend to do things with them, either just at the backyard, right? It doesn't have to be, for example, initially we're thinking, oh, we're gonna go to one of the fair that is happening locally on one day for the holiday. And then we're like, you know what? We're going to take this road trip. This day, we're going to actually just sit at home, right?
Mm.
Like just be at home, just be in the backyard, just play some games, just with 5 of us. We have 3 kids, and that's okay, right? Quality over quantity in a sense, right? If we can just be together. My favorite things to do are not planned. I plan a lot for work. So when it comes to the kids and family time, I don't do too much planning. I go with the flow. I stay
Yeah,
present and I go with the flow. And I'm more of the let's take a walk to the park today random
yeah,
kind of person to enjoy downtime. And I think when we say work-life balance, a lot of time people think of this perfect cruise of everything working.
right, right.
No,
Yeah,
there's ups, there's downs, there's seasons where work is intense for one person and the other one has to pick up more at home. And there's seasons where we're both busy, but we knew it was coming. We make plans for it and we make sure we plan for downtimes in between. And then there's times when everything feels balanced, right?
yeah,
But no matter where it is, it's putting our own individual care also in the mix,
yeah.
right? It's beyond the kids, beyond work. What do I do to relax? When do I get me time? And making that important, because when we are all okay individually, then we can do the best work we do. We can do the work we love best.
Yeah, and it comes back to the way we are as parts of a team in business and parts of a family. There are similarities. Our
Right,
personalities are all different. One person likes to work at night, one person likes to work in the morning, one person likes to be outside a lot, another person wants to sit on the couch. Everybody has their style, and when they need their space or when they need their together time, it you can't be super rigid about it.
right,
I think, and the family is not a 50,000 person corporation. And also, it's ultimately about that experience and that growth and where the
right,
family is going
right,
versus the bottom line, quote unquote. It's those things we're doing for business often serve the family. That's the
right,
point. So if the family can stay strong, that doesn't mean our bottom line is better. It means it means the bottom line is the family better. So it is an interesting thing to do. Well, thank you, Lola. This has been great. And I'm glad we added that bit because that is an important piece. And it does come back to community,
yeah,
the
yeah.
family and the community around that.
Around that. Yeah. No, I'm glad we got to talk about that too, because I mean, I know you're also living it, because I think a lot of times people think they're trying to debunk this notion of we keep our work separate and all of that. Right. Like
Yeah.
one of our employees just had to take off a couple of hours earlier today because of a kid thing. And I'm
Mm.
like, that's totally fine. This stuff happened. You work hard on normal day. If something happens with life, you're not going to show up your best if you need to push that aside and pretend to work, right?
Right. Right. that's a cosmetic fix. And I've had supervisors or known bosses where they are so worried about the cosmetic thing for their boss
Right.
that ultimately nobody's doing anything
Nobody's
really
doing
right.
anything.
Everybody's just looking like they're doing
Everybody's
stuff
just looking
because,
like, yeah.
yeah, they're worried about what it looks like.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, I've had jobs where it's like, okay, it's 4 o'clock on the dot, we're out.
Yeah.
Like literally 4:05, you can't find anybody in. And I'm like, how is that even? I'd rather have a goal for what I want to complete that day, take breaks when I need to, even if I have to leave at 4:30, right? And know that, or if there's something going on and I can only do one thing, communicate to my boss and deal with one thing, instead of putting up the face to show up and then saying, I put in my 8 hours, I'm out.
Alright.
If you liked the show,
Yes, and?
it worked for you,
Yes, then?
subscribe and leave a
Yes, friend.
5-star review.
Yes, friend.
Tell all your friends.
Yes, friend.
Get your branding here.
Yes, friend.
Get your branding here.
Yes, friend.
Did I make it clear?
Yes, friend.
Get your branding on
Yes.
before they're gone.
Yeah. Huh?